Hello, my name is Emma and welcome to Really Good Books, Episode 1, the new series I'm starting where I talk about really good books that I've read recently, because I find that I don't want to talk about the books that I just thought were okay, and I don't read a lot of books that I hate. I also don't like making videos that are super negative towards a book unless I think that the book is problematic or I think that I have valuable criticism, but most of the time other people have said it, so I don't really feel like throwing in my 2 cents. I'd rather just be like, hey, this person said it better than I could have said it, my feelings about this book. But in general, I think negativity sells on the internet, so I'm gonna try my best to reverse it and put a little positivity and tell you about some good books, and I'm standing up, so I've got a lot of mobility. Okay, first book is Displacement by Lucy Nicely. I'm a big Lucy Nicely fan. As you probably know, she writes graphic memoirs and she's super talented and her art is beautiful, and I'm sort of an aspiring artist, so I am very inspired by her. Aspiring artist who is inspired by her. This book is really fantastic. This is, I don't remember in terms of the number and the line of her memoirs, but it's like a newer-ish one. Displacement is about Lucy Nicely going on a cruise ship, a cruise adventure situation with her elderly grandparents and taking care of them. It's a fantastic study of life and death. It's this beautiful look at what it's like to be a young person, seeing the decline of people that, you know, were so alive or so lively when you were younger. It's incredibly sad and bittersweet and charming and kind-hearted and big-hearted. I think that elderly people we paint like a very black and white picture of elderly people, and I personally love elderly people, and I used to spend a lot of time at an old person's home, an elderly person's home in my hometown when I was in high school, and I volunteered there, and I have a special place in my heart for elderly people, and I just really loved this because it was so kind-hearted and it was so honest, and she wasn't afraid to talk about sort of the nitty-gritty of taking care of an elderly person, but she was also unafraid to talk about the beauty of like all of the stories and all of the life experience, and she puts all of these sections or different sections from her grandfather's book about when in his time in World War II, and I just thought it was lovely and generous and kind, and everyone should read it, and it'll make you, I think, like have more perspective if maybe you aren't really a big fan of elderly people. So, Displacement, really good book. Next we have The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. Ignore this horribly ugly sticker. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get emotional. I love Carrie Fisher. A lot of people love Carrie Fisher. And I grew up with Star Wars in my life, but I wasn't like a big Star Wars fan. My siblings loved it so much, and they're older than me, and I just didn't want anything to do with them. So that really wasn't how I found Carrie Fisher. I found her because I loved the movie When Harry Met Sally, and I still love that movie. And I was like 14 or 15, I watched that movie for the first time, and I was like, I recognize her. And then I became a big Carrie Fisher fan through her writing and through just her voice and her impact, especially when she talks about mental health and those sorts of issues and addiction. And I think that she was just one of the greatest, kindest, loveliest voices, most honest voices that we've had in the public sphere. So I was just so excited to read this book. I've not read any of her other books, but I really enjoyed it so much. This follows, part of this book is literal journal entries from when she was filming the first Star Wars at 19, and it also is just her looking back at that time period. And there's so much of this book that just, I was like, yes, oh my gosh, Carrie Fisher. Like, there are a couple parts, there's one part where she talks about being adorable and round-faced and feeling like no one can take her seriously and no one could like find her to be an adult woman, and I feel that so hard. I have a round face. I used to have even a rounder face, and that was always like a thing, like my angst, such a privileged angst, but I'd be like, no one takes me seriously because I have this like chubby face. But I just love that because I never heard that like put in a book before. Like, I had never read those thoughts that had been such a part of my like self-esteem issues growing up, and then reading it I was like, oh my gosh, yes, Carrie Fisher. There's a lot of sections about, or there's one section in particular where he talks about being like really cheerful and feeling like she has different personalities with different people, which I thought was fabulous. the kind of the big news with this book is she talks about her affair with Harrison Ford, and I liked that section in some ways. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting to see that power dynamic, because obviously he was significantly older than her, and that power dynamic was not equal at all. But I like the way she wrote about it, and again, it felt very real to me, and it felt like things that I've experienced. I mean, I did not sleep with, you know, a 32-year-old super famous handsome actor when I was 19, but just in terms of relationships in general and those power dynamics being off kilter and sort of the insecurities that come along with that, I just think this book is just beautiful, and smart and kind. Again, kind-hearted, big-hearted. She talks about interactions with fans in a way that I liked. It was honest, but she was also kind to them, and I loved it so much, and I just miss Carrie Fisher's voice so endlessly, and I'm sad that we won't get to hear more of it, but I'm about to just read all of her things that I haven't already read, and I'm very happy. So even if you're not a fan of Star Wars, I think you should read this, because it's just a good book. It's a really good book. And then finally, I want to talk about The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I know so many people have already read this. I read this with Mike from Slice of Mike. He finished it way before me. I was really sick, and then I finally finished it. Oh, this book. I loved it so much. I know so many people love it, but I loved it so much. I did have my issues with it. I thought some of the character development wasn't great. I thought some of the characters were weaker than others. Primarily Rosemary felt very much like a Mary Sue, whatever you want to say. She just didn't really have much of a character. Some of the backstories I didn't think were handled very well, but in general, I thought this book was just great. I mean, I was so entertained by it that I just felt like I was flying through pages and having the greatest time. If you don't know what it's about, which I'm sure you do, it's about sort of a ragtag group of space adventurers who have this mission to drill a hole through space and to bring two, not nations, but bring people together, and things happen, and it's amazing. There isn't a big plot to it. It's mostly just a character study, but I love that. Even though some of the character studies I don't think work super well, in general, I thought it really sang beautifully. Again, it is very kind-hearted and lovely, and everyone treats each other with treats each other with respect, which I really enjoyed. This book is about loving other people, in this case, other species. It's about being open-hearted and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and I think that's a really lovely message to send into the universe right now. And I just really loved it. And if you haven't read it and you were skeptical like I was, I just wasn't sure because I'm not a big sci-fi reader, read it. It's lovely and fun and, again, big-hearted. But yeah, it's a really good book. Anyway, those are my first 3 really good books. I hope you enjoyed this video. What are some really good books that you've read recently? I would love to know them. I'll be back with another one of these probably in the next week or so, because I've been reading a lot more recently, which is awesome. But anyway, have a wonderful day.